Obvious to whom, rumbled Eeyore, if you don't mind me asking. You mean to tell me none of you knows this sort of egg this is? Demanded Rabbit. Well, hooted Owl, shifting his feet on the perch atop the egg, it's not an owl egg. I can say that with certainty and not a small amount of relief. It's an Easter egg, Rabbit announced triumphantly. There was a silence as everyone digested this revelation. Aren't we sort of too far west of Easter eggs? Tigger finally asked. Not because he knew what he was talking about, but because the quiet was making him restless. No, moaned Rabbit. Easter is a holiday, and it's now. This is the time of the year everyone gives decorated eggs to one another. I have it on very good authority from someone who knows the Easter Bunny gardener, he added smugly. Ah, replied Pooh. He'd found that pretending a thing was understood was sometimes very close to actually understanding it. Then it could easily be forgotten with no one the wiser, especially not Pooh. Why, muttered Eeyore, giving his tail a shake before sitting down, would anyone do a thing like that? Well, Rabbit answered somewhat hesitantly, that is a little harder to explain, he paused. It seemed, at least from what I've been told, that these are very special eggs. Very special how, Bunny boy? Tigger wanted to know. Don't keep us suspended out with it. It appears, Rabbit said slowly, that they can talk. Ah, Pooh said again, a little louder. To be specific, Rabbit sniffed importantly. They are supposed to say how very much we care for one another. They all looked at the egg for a very long time with new respect. Said Gopher, breaking the silence. I'll bet this egg said it loud. They all gathered close around the egg and listened carefully. It's not saying anything now, said Tigger in a disappointed whisper. But perhaps it's shy, suggested Piglet. We haven't exactly been properly introduced, responded Eeyore. Not that anyone has ever been in a hurry to introduce me. And eggs, no matter how large, can't have been around long enough to know how to make friends quickly, Owl reminded everyone. I imagine, said Piglet, giving the egg a gentle pat, that it feels quite out of place. Perhaps if we make it feel at home, it'll feel more like talking, and Pooh cried. But how does one make an egg feel at home? Asked Rabbit in exasperation. Pooh smiled. I believe I have an idea. It seemed as if no time had passed at all before Pooh's plan was put into effect. There on the highest hill in the 100-acre wood, it suddenly appeared as if the giant egg were no longer the only Easter egg up there. Pooh painted himself with a bubbly pink with a baby blue freckles. Tigger had acquired a checkerboard pattern of pastels. Piglet resembled a very small, very red apple, while Owl was sky blue color with a trim of fleecy white clouds. Gopher was colored with a ripe banana, and Eeyore was decked out in lavender polka dots. It has to speak sooner or later, doesn't it? Sighed Pooh, after quite some time had passed. I mean, if it's going to say it cares and all. Maybe we have to tell it how much we care first, suggested Eeyore. You know, just to break the ice. How do we do that? Asked Piglet. The only proper way to speak to an egg, Owl informed anyone who cared to listen, is when you are sitting on it. Maybe so, agreed Gopher, but it seems to me that not just any whippersnapper who happens along can sit on an Easter egg. Doesn't seem to fit the blueprint somehow. I can tell you one thing for certain, said Tigger. I wouldn't want anyone sitting on me unless I was pretty sure he knew what he was doing. Everyone began rubbing their chins and scratching their heads, furiously trying to figure out what they were going to do. One by one, they all turned to stare at Winnie the Pooh, who in the 100-acre wood knew more about sitting than Winnie the Pooh did. Broad smiles spread slowly over their faces. Oh yes, they said to one another and nodded. Of course. Pooh nodded and smiled along with them, even though he had no idea what they were nodding and smiling about. It seemed that the friendly thing to do. Rabbit put his arm around Pooh's shoulder. "This time I have a plan, Pooh Bear." "Ah," said Pooh. The next thing Pooh knew, Tigger was standing on top of the egg, tugging on Pooh's hand, while Rabbit stood beneath and pushed for all he was worth. Piglet and Gopher ran around in helpless circles, shouting advice as the egg began to sway erratically back and forth. Al hovered above the activity and made disapproving comments regarding the animals without wings. But before anyone could get Pooh seated, let alone ask the egg anything, away it went, rolling down the hill, bright colors shifting like a pinwheel. They chased the rolling egg downhill and uphill and over valleys until through the rushing streams and muddy spaces, across the wide meadow, under bridges. The egg rolled to a halt, spinning around like a wayward bottle, turning more and more slowly until it finally stopped, with its tip pointing directly at Christopher Robin. "What are you doing with my Easter egg?" he wanted to know. "Delivering it," Pooh suggested with a smile. "Well," said Christopher Robin, looking over its decorated friends with a smile, you certainly are dressed for the job." Tigger put his ear to the egg and gave a disgusted snort. "It's still not saying anything to anybody." "Are you sure this is your egg, Christopher Robin?" asked Pooh. "Actually, no," he admitted. "It's yours. It's all of yours. It was actually going to be a present from me, so I hid it way up. Thought it was a lonely place." He laughed. "It seemed you'd beat me to my own surprise. So when is it going to tell us how much it cares?" Eeyore demanded. "I mean, if that's what it's supposed to do." Christopher Robin put his fingers to his lips. "You just have to know how to listen. Watch." Christopher Robin grasped the huge egg with both arms around its middle and began to twist the top. The egg slowly began to unscrew. In a moment, Christopher Robin removed the top half of the egg and lifted out another egg painted to look very much like Winnie the Pooh. "Oh my," breathed Pooh. "You haven't seen anything yet," laughed Christopher Robin. He began unscrewing Pooh's egg, one after another, each a bit smaller than the last. An egg in the image of each of Christopher Robin's friends was revealed. The last, of course, was Piglet. It was a very small egg, but the delight Piglet was used to very good things in very small packages. "I'm going to keep mine next to my bedside table," decided Pooh, after a long bout of thinking. "Isn't that a strange place for an Easter egg?" asked Christopher Robin. "Oh, my goodness, not at all," chuckled Pooh. "Then, the last thing it tells me before I fall asleep at night, and the first thing it says when I open my eyes in the morning, will be how very much somebody cares." Christopher Robin put his arm around Pooh Bear's shoulder and scratched him behind the ears. "Happy Easter, silly old bear."